It is time for some more draft grades. We're going through all the best teams in the NFL in terms of how they drafted. And another team that drafted really well. Yesterday we talked Tampa Bay. Today we are talking the Minnesota Vikings. First of all, they headed into free agency this past offseason. With the least amount of cap space in the NFL, they were practically in the negative, so they had to release a lot of guys. They lost a lot of talent: Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, three of their starting corners. They traded Stephon Diggs. They lost a whole lot of capital. But they've done a really nice job through the draft of getting a lot back. They had 15 picks throughout the draft, and their first 6 addressed needs that they really needed to address. So, obviously, early on, Justin Jefferson, what an excellent pick. He had, 1,580 yards last year, doubling his production from the year before, 111 receptions, I believe, as well as 18 touchdowns. Very lucky that Philadelphia passed on him, but he fell to Minnesota and they made a great pick. They also drafted Jeff Gladney out of TCU. He didn't have the most outstanding year, but he did have, I think it was 2 interceptions. Similar production to another guy that I like. I love Jeff Gladney's anticipation. That's one of the biggest things about him. He's good anticipation. He lays his body on the line for the football, too. Another guy that I like that they brought in, Ezra Cleveland, physical guy, Boise State. But also Cam Dantzler. That's a guy that I had out of Mississippi State that I thought Seattle could look at potentially. He's a little cornerback. He's undersized. That's probably part of the reason why Seattle didn't go after him quite as much as they probably should have, but he's an excellent open field tackler and he makes plays. You can't tell that he's undersized by how he plays, kind of like Earl Thomas. He plays very physical for his size. But then we keep going on down the list, and they drafted 2 defensive ends immediately following that, one of them from Baylor, and this individual had 13.5 sacks last year. That is addressing a need for Minnesota that they eagerly needed to fill. Minnesota, I think, had an excellent draft. I give them an A for the amount of talent that they brought in. 15 picks over the whole draft. You better get some production out of that. And I definitely think they're going to. It was an offseason where they had no choice but to succeed in the draft because of the fact that they lost so much talent, so much capital via free agency and via trade with Stephon Diggs. They took advantage of it. Shout out to Minnesota. They did a nice job in this year's draft. As always, like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Let me know what you think about the Minnesota Vikings draft. Am I overreacting? Did they not deserve an A? I think they had an excellent draft. Let me know if you disagree. As always, go Hawks.